I would like to welcome you to our Sabbath School lesson discussion for this week, lesson 13. The title is The Gospel and the Church. Our memory verse is found in the book of Galatians, chapter 6, verse 10. Paul wrote to the Galatian Christians, "So then, if we had opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those of the household of faith." The question that we are going to address for this week's lesson is how to do good, especially to those who share or who have the same faith like ours. There's a quotation here in our Sabbath afternoon segment that I would like to quote from our lesson study guide. It's talking about, the farmers or potato farmers who are withholding the best or the best seed for themselves. I'd like to quote from International Student Fellowship newsletter, March 2007, and please listen carefully. In another sense, planting small tomatoes is still common practice. We take the big things of life ourselves and plant the leftovers. We expect that by some crazy twist of spiritual laws, our selfishness will be rewarded with unselfishness. That's a very true statement indeed, right? The principle that we are going to tackle for this week is how to be truly unselfish in our dealing, especially those who are committing mistakes, those who are hurting, those who are discouraged, those who are not able to fully understand what the Lord's will for their lives and how they relate to church members. And so, doing good to others may seem, at the surface level, easy. But actually, friends, it is more than that. It starts from our understanding of our sinfulness, our own idiosyncratic ways that we don't want others to see. The lesson is specifically telling us how to do good to those who are falling from the grace of God. How do you deal with somebody who had been going through very rough and tough times? Do you talk about him or about her instead of applying the principle found in Matthew chapter 18, verses 15 to 17? This may seem to be very obvious, but many of us are not doing what we are supposed to do. That's why there are many people, instead of being attracted to stay in the fellowship or in the household of faith, they tend or they become more discouraged and they tend to leave the church family as a whole. How do we deal with those people who are sinning? How do we deal with people who have issues in their lives? Can we be trusted in our dealing with them? Or maybe we are trying to be judgmental or condemning others because nobody sees that we have been doing it ourselves. How do we treat others whom we know that we personally had seen that they have done wrong, and what they have been doing was what we have been doing before as well? So the lesson is very encouraging as well. The fact that the good news does not only applies to ourselves, but the good news applies to others. And that the forgiveness of God is for ourselves. And that forgiveness from God to ourselves must also be shared to other people. Many of the church members in the Seventh Adventist Church find it very difficult to stay longer for those who have just been baptized. For those who have been staying in the church for a long time, they have no problem because they know how it is to relate to some people. But for those who have been fallen, those who are new, those who are tempted, those who are struggling in their spiritual lives, The question that you and I should ask is, am I being good to that person? Am I good to that person who is sinning or who has fallen? Our lesson as well reminded us that let us find opportunity to do good. Let us not wait in the pews or let us not wait in the foyer. Let us take the initiative to be bearers of righteousness, to be bearers of good news to others. In so doing, we are fulfilling the law of Christ. The Bible always mentions or always tells us to love one another because this is the second and the greatest commandment. Now, I know many of us could say that we love other people, but do we really love them from our hearts? Continue to explore and continue to study the Sabbath School lesson as we will discuss this coming Sabbath. May God bless you and continue to do good, especially to the household of faith.